The Trail of Tears remains one of the most heartbreaking and defining chapters in American history. A story of forced removal, immense suffering, and incredible resilience. It is a story that echoes through time, reminding us of the cost of greed, the pain of displacement, and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. In the early 19th century, as the United States expanded westward, the lands east of the Mississippi River became increasingly valuable to white settlers. These fertile territories, home to native nations such as the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole, were seen as prime land for cotton cultivation, especially with the growth of slavery and the booming cotton economy in the South. To American settlers and politicians, these lands represented opportunity. But to the native peoples who had lived there for generations, they represented identity, history, and connection to ancestors. Despite centuries of coexistence, pressure grew to remove these nations from their homelands to make way for expansion. In 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, a policy that authorized the federal government to negotiate treaties to relocate native tribes to lands west of the Mississippi. Though the act was described as voluntary, in reality, it set the stage for one of the largest and most tragic forced migrations in American history. The Cherokee Nation, one of the most organized and literate tribes, resisted removal through legal and political means. Under the leadership of Chief John Ross, the Cherokee took their case to the U.S. Supreme Court. In Worcester versus Georgia in 1832, the court ruled in favor of the Cherokee, declaring that Georgia's interference in Cherokee territory was unconstitutional. However, President Jackson reportedly ignored the ruling, allegedly saying, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." Whether he said those exact words or not, his refusal to uphold the decision led to disaster for the Cherokee people. The power of law gave way to the force of politics and prejudice. By 1835, a small faction of Cherokee leaders, against the will of their nation's majority, signed the Treaty of New Echota, agreeing to move west in exchange for money and land in present-day Oklahoma. Despite petitions and protests from thousands of Cherokee citizens, the U.S. Senate ratified the treaty by a single vote. This decision sealed the fate of an entire people. In 1838, under the order of President Martin Van Buren, federal troops and state militias began rounding up Cherokee men, women, and children. Families were forced from their homes with little more than the clothes they wore. Soldiers herded them into makeshift camps, often with poor sanitation, scarce food, and rampant disease. Over 16,000 Cherokee were held in these camps as they awaited removal. Many would not live to begin the journey. As autumn turned to winter, groups of Cherokee were forced to march westward under military escort. This march would become known as Nunadol Tsuni, meaning the trail where they cried. History remembers it as the Trail of Tears. The journey covered more than 200 miles, stretching from Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina to the Indian Territory, now Oklahoma. The route crossed rivers, mountains, and endless plains. The weather was unforgiving, blistering heat in summer and freezing cold in winter. The Cherokee had little shelter, insufficient clothing, and almost no supplies. As they traveled, hunger and disease took hold. Dysentery, cholera, and pneumonia spread quickly among the weak and malnourished. Food rations were scarce, often consisting of moldy flour and spoiled meat. Many families buried their loved ones along the roadside, marking graves with simple stones or leaving them unmarked in the frozen earth. Eyewitness accounts described the heartbreaking scenes. Soldiers recalled seeing mothers carrying infants who had frozen to death in their arms. Children wept for their parents, and the elderly, too weak to continue, were left behind to die. Estimates vary, but historians believe that between 4,000 and 6,000 Cherokee lost their lives during the march, nearly 1/4 of their entire population. Other tribes faced similar fates. The Choctaw were the first to be removed in 1831, enduring floods, hunger, and disease. One Choctaw leader described the journey as a trail of tears and death, a phrase that would forever define this dark period. The Creek, Chickasaw, and Seminole were also displaced, each suffering tremendous losses as they were driven from their lands. The Seminole, in particular, resisted removal with fierce determination. In Florida, under leaders like Osceola, they fought the U.S. Army in the Second Seminole War, one of the longest and most expensive conflicts waged by the United States against indigenous people. Though many Seminole were eventually captured or killed, some escaped into the Everglades, where their descendants remain today. The human cost of the Indian removal policy was devastating, but its impact extended far beyond physical suffering. For Native nations, removal meant the loss of ancestral homelands, sacred sites, and traditional ways of life. It fractured communities, erased local histories, and attempted to sever the connection between people and the land that defined them. Yet, even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, the story of the Trail of Tears is not only one of sorrow, it is also one of survival. The Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, Chickasaw, and Seminole rebuilt their nations in the West. They established new governments, schools, and churches. They adapted, endured, and continued to preserve their languages, stories, and traditions against all odds. In Indian Territory, the Cherokee Nation rebuilt its capital at Tahlequah, establishing a new constitution and continuing its commitment to education. Within decades, they reopened schools, published newspapers, and re-established a strong national identity. Their perseverance stood as a testament to cultural resilience and the strength of community. The Trail of Tears became a defining event in Native American history and a symbol of injustice in the broader story of the United States. It forced the nation to confront its contradictions, its ideals of liberty and equality versus its treatment of indigenous peoples. For many, it marked the beginning of centuries of struggle for sovereignty, recognition, and respect. Today, the memory of the Trail of Tears is preserved through historical sites, museums, and commemorations along the routes the Cherokee and other tribes traveled. The National Park Service maintains the Trail of Tears National Historic Trail, covering more than 5,000 miles across 9 states, reminding future generations of the journey's cost and meaning. Descendants of those who survived continue to honor their ancestors through remembrance walks, storytelling, and cultural revival. Each year, Cherokee youth retrace parts of the trail on foot, keeping alive the memory of those who suffered so that their people could endure. Their steps symbolize both mourning and strength. The Trail of Tears is not only a story from the past, it's a living memory of injustice, endurance, and renewal. It invites reflection on the consequences of prejudice and greed, and it challenges us to recognize the resilience of Native nations that continue to thrive despite centuries of hardship. To tell the story of the Trail of Tears is to confront a painful truth about American history, but also to honor those who refuse to be erased. Through their endurance, new generations rise connected by the same spirit that once carried them through tragedy towards survival. Let this history remind us that progress built on suffering is never true progress. The strength of a nation lies not in conquest, but in compassion, respect, and remembrance. The legacy of the Trail of Tears endures in the songs, languages, and traditions that still echo across the land. It lives in the descendants who continue to fight for justice, sovereignty, and the right to tell their own stories. And as we remember this chapter, we are called not only to grieve, but to learn, to listen, and to ensure that such pain is never repeated. If you found this video insightful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with others who value learning from history. Your support helps us continue telling stories that matter. And if there's another topic from history or Native American heritage you'd like us to explore, let us know in the comments below. Together, we can honor the past while learning from it for a better future.